A lot of criticism, Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, over the so-called CHIPS bill, whatever it was, $50 billion, $53 billion. Actually, the total bill was nearly $300 billion when you add on all the add-ons and the climate change and the Green New Deal stuff. But the reality is there's a lot of social policy in here. You're not getting chips, you're getting daycare centers. You're also getting various union requirements for higher wages and other things. So we have a Republican revolt. Joining us today to talk about this, Florida Senator Rick Scott. Senator Scott, thank you. You know, it's interesting. The editorial in the Wall Street Journal, Gina Raimondo, social policy planner. Now, I would expect that because you can't get your money unless you have all your daycare centers and you pay a high minimum wage and union rules. But what's interesting, Senator Scott, is Bloomberg. $52 billion chip-making plan is racing toward failure. How about that? The CHIPS and Science Act, too much red tape, clean air permits, in general, NEPA negotiations. You know, they broke the Trump NEPA stuff, which H.R. 1 is trying to restore, and very poor immigration policies, and one thing after another. So Bloomberg basically has the same point of view here as the Wall Street Journal. So you got both of them, left and right. I find that fascinating.
Well, first off, I mean, this is $280+ billion. It didn't mandate that we'd get chips made that we need in America. It didn't mandate that these companies would stop doing business in China. We got no return for a taxpayer. There's no say, oh, if I invest this money, I get a return like a shareholder would expect. We should expect that for taxpayers. But what it did do is gave the Biden administration the ability to do social policy. So they can tell you what your child care policy is going to be, what your adult health care policy is going to be, every policy you want, they're going to decide, because you know what? The Biden administration, the Democrats, they know how to run your company better than you do. That's exactly what this is. This is big government. They can tell you everything because guess what? They all went to the right schools and they know exactly how to social engineer our economy because they've done it so well in the past. No, they haven't.
Well, I'll read you. It's so interesting here. I'm going to go to the Bloomberg one because that's so much fun. Producing chips in the U.S. still takes 25% longer and costs 50% more than doing it in Asia. Chief among the problems is too much red tape, clean air permits, national environment, that's the NEPA problems, can take 4.5 years. A half dozen other federal laws may come into play. All this delays, adds expenses, discourages private investment, and prevents U.S. manufacturers from seriously competing with overseas rivals. So here you go. I mean, here the problem was a whole bunch of Republicans voted for this bill also, if my memory serves me. That's too bad. Now the question is what to do about this mess.
Well, we've got to stop the Biden administration from doing social engineering, okay? And we've got to go back and say to ourselves, why don't we pass bills with some accountability in them? Why don't we say, if we want chips made in this country, let's pay for it. If that's important enough to us. And by the way, I did 1,000 economic development projects when I was governor of Florida. Guess what? I got a 10-to-1 return on our money. Up here, all we do, and some Republicans are going with the Democrats on this stuff, just throw the money out there, maybe just hope and pray something good will happen out of it. This was not anti-China. A company like Intel is going to get $4 billion, $1 billion tax write-off, $4 billion in cash, and they're going to keep doing business in China, just like they were doing now. And by the way, they testified. The CEO said if China invades Taiwan, they're just going to keep doing business just a good old way, help China every day. Great bill, isn't it?
Well, you know, I would just add one thing. On the way out here, federal industrial policy, picking winners and losers, never works, number one.
Nope.
Number two, when you have these big spending bills, you're going to get all these various woke contributions, climate contributions. They don't solve. The NEPA problem, by the way, is solved by the H.R. 1 coming out of the House, the energy bill. And finally, Senator Scott, why don't we just slash regulations and tax rates? The Bidens are raising regulations on businesses, and they want to raise taxes on businesses. So therefore, we're not going to get any renaissance of semiconductors. Give you the last word on that.
We need to reduce regulation. We need to make it easier to get a permit. We need to reduce our taxes and fees, and we'll see unbelievable job growth in this country. We've got to bring manufacturing back to this country and get it out of communist China.
I will say again, I always say this, said to my former boss, I'll say it to you, the best onshoring policy for manufacturing is slash regulations and slash tax rates and keep a sound currency to invite investment. Senator Rick Scott, we appreciate it.